The eggs were still warm when she texted. Don't wait for me. No punctuation. Just 3 flat words that erased the entire morning I'd spent preparing her favorite breakfast, soft scrambled with rosemary toast and a slice of peach. Her mug of green tea had gone cold before I dumped it into the sink. That's when I realized I was setting a table for a ghost. The night before, she had whispered something while facing the wall. I need space, she said like she was ordering it off a menu. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't hear, but because I did. By noon, the house had stopped pretending to be a home. The bedroom smelled like her perfume, but she wasn't in it. The laundry she left half done buzzed on repeat like it was mocking me. I walked into the hallway, stepped on a necklace she probably didn't even remember dropping, and sat down on the stairs with it tangled around my fingers like some kind of joke. It was then, in that quiet hallway where we once slow danced on moving day, that I understood what she really meant. She wasn't asking for space. She was asking for permission to leave me behind. So I gave her space. I gave her so much space that I stopped existing in her world. No messages. No phone calls. No check-ins. I even turned off my location, something I hadn't done in years. Let her wonder where I was. If I was okay. If I cared. But here's the part no one warns you about. When you truly disappear, people notice. And not always in the way you expect. By the second day, she called twice. I didn't answer. By the third, she sent a picture of an empty plate at our favorite diner, the place we used to go when things felt okay. By the fourth, she showed up at my office. But it was already too late. She had asked for an absence, and I had become it. And the worst part? She thought I'd still be waiting. She thought I'd still be soft scrambled eggs and rosemary toast. But I wasn't. I was gone. I didn't expect her to show up that fast. Maybe part of me thought she'd enjoy the space for a little longer, stretch her legs, explore her freedom, taste the silence she said she craved. But there she was, standing in our driveway on a Thursday afternoon, holding a brown paper bag from the same cafe she used to mock for being too try-hard. Her sunglasses were too big for her face, and her hair was tied in that haphazard bun she only wore when she was nervous or lying. I watched her through the blinds. Didn't open the door. Didn't even move. She stood there for almost 6 minutes, I counted, then placed the bag on the welcome mat and knocked once. Not twice. Just once. Like she wasn't sure if she wanted me to answer or if she was hoping I wouldn't. When she left, I waited. I didn't touch the bag for hours. Later, I found out it had a turkey sandwich with a note inside that read, "Thought you might be hungry." That was it. No love, no apology, no smiley face, just a 7-word piece offering from someone who used to know me better than anyone. Or maybe she never really did. That night, I slept in the guest room again. Not because we were fighting. We weren't even speaking. I just didn't want to share air with someone who treated me like background noise until the music stopped playing. Friday morning, she called. I didn't pick up. She texted, "Can we talk tonight?" I replied, "I'm not home." She didn't ask where I was. She didn't even reply. But something had shifted, not in me, but in her. I could feel it through the silence. Like she'd taken a step forward and suddenly realized I wasn't just out of reach, I was gone. The thing about distance is, it's fine until you realize it's no longer a choice. It's permanent. I went to the lake that weekend. Alone. Brought an old fishing rod I hadn't touched in years and a pack of soggy matches I never got around to replacing. Sat on a bench where we once planned baby names. I skipped rocks. I thought about how easily people lie to themselves when they say, it's just a phase. We'll be fine. We weren't fine. We were quietly crumbling. And I was done patching over the cracks with patience. On Sunday, I got back home and saw her car in the driveway. I parked 2 blocks away. Walked. Breathed in the night air like it owed me something. When I opened the front door, I heard her pacing upstairs. Light footsteps. Anxious ones. She called out, "Lowell." I didn't answer right away. She came halfway down the stairs and stopped when she saw me. Her face was pale, like she expected someone else, or maybe no one at all. "You haven't been home," she said softly, gripping the railing like it was the only thing holding her together. I was worried. I shrugged. "You wanted space." Her mouth opened, then closed. She took one more step. "Not like this." I almost laughed. Not like this? What did she expect? That I'd wait by the door with puppy eyes? That I'd hover just far enough for her to miss me, but not far enough to be free? No, that wasn't space. That was control. She reached out her hand, and for a split second, I almost took it. Muscle memory. Habit. The part of me that still believed we could fix something broken beyond recognition. But I didn't move. And neither did she. That was when she said it. There's no one else, Lowell. I swear. She wasn't good at lying. Her voice cracked on the word swear, and her eyes darted to the side just a second too long. I didn't call her out. I didn't yell. I just nodded and walked past her, straight into the bedroom. She didn't follow. Instead, she stood there, halfway down the staircase, like a woman waking up from a dream and realizing the house is empty. But I was right there. She just couldn't reach me anymore. The following week unfolded like a slow-motion avalanche. Quiet, almost delicate at first, then collapsing fast and without warning. Tessa pretended things were fine. I pretended not to notice. We moved around each other like two actors in a forgotten play, improvising lines we didn't believe anymore. She started doing this thing she hadn't done in years, setting her phone face down on the counter. Not during dinner. Not during conversations. All the time. Even in the shower, she started taking it with her. I would hear the water running, but so was her voice, muffled through the door like a confession not meant for me. One evening, while she was in the laundry room, her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. A message preview popped up. Just a name, Emerson. No emoji. No last name. No context. But the second I saw it, something inside me twisted. Not because I knew who he was, I didn't. But because she had once sworn that if she ever started hiding things from me, that would be the end. That had been her promise. So I waited until she went to bed, left her phone charging in the living room, face down, of course, and I stared at it. I didn't pick it up. Didn't unlock it. I didn't have to. That name was enough. My mind did the rest. Who was Emerson? A coworker? A friend? A man who offered her the kind of attention I had stopped giving, or that she claimed I never gave in the first place. And worst of all, was I just the safe harbor she came back to when she was tired of wandering? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I watched her sleep. Her breathing was shallow, lips slightly parted, eyebrows pinched like she was dreaming of something she couldn't control. I wondered if she looked like that in someone else's bed. I hated myself for even thinking it. The next morning, I left the house before she woke up. I drove without a destination, ended up in the parking lot of an old bowling alley we used to go to before everything got complicated. I sat there for hours, just watching people come and go, living lives that weren't unraveling at the edges. That afternoon, I got a text. From her. Can we have dinner together tonight? Just us. I stared at it for a long time. Just us, as if we were used to having an audience. As if something unspoken had already joined us at the table. Still, I agreed. She made chicken piccata, her go-to apology meal. I didn't say anything as she set the table with candles. It was quiet, too quiet. She smiled too much, asked about my day like we were on a first date. I answered like I didn't live there. And when we sat down to eat, she raised a glass of white wine and said, to us. I clinked my glass, barely touching hers. Halfway through dinner, I asked, who's Emerson? She froze. The sound of the air conditioner filled the silence. Her fork paused mid-cut. Her eyes went wide, not surprised, but caught. She tried to recover. He's just someone from the office. We're working on a side project. I said nothing. She took a breath. It's not like that, Lowell. I nodded and cut into my food. What's it like then? Silence. Her hand trembled as she put her fork down. I think I've made a mess of everything. I didn't disagree. I thought I needed space, but I was wrong. You started pulling away, and suddenly I couldn't breathe without wondering where you were. It scared me. I looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in months, I saw fear behind her eyes, the kind that doesn't come from guilt, but from realizing you might have broken something you can't fix. She reached across the table. Can we start over? I leaned back in my chair. Her hand hovered in the space between us. No, I said softly, we can't. Her face crumpled. Not dramatically. Not with sobs or shouting. Just like a mirror cracking in slow motion. She had asked for distance. She got it. She used it. But now, she wanted to come home. And I wasn't sure it existed anymore. 3 days passed after that dinner. She didn't ask again. I didn't bring it up. We existed like two people accidentally assigned the same hotel room, sleeping on opposite sides of the bed with silence wedged between us like a third presence. That silence was colder than any argument we'd ever had, heavier than any slammed door. But she kept trying, in her way, making fresh coffee in the morning, folding my laundry, even restocking the weird cereal only I liked that she always made fun of. It was almost sweet, almost like her again, but it all felt performative. like she was writing lines from a role she'd long stopped caring about. I started noticing other details, small, unsettling ones. The curtains in the living room had been slightly pulled back one afternoon when I returned from a walk. Tessa never touched them during the day. The throw blanket on the couch had been folded differently, tighter, the way I used to fold it, not her. I began to wonder, was she expecting someone to come over? Had someone been there? It wasn't paranoia. Not anymore. It was pattern recognition. There's a difference. Saturday morning, she said she was going to a yoga class, something she hadn't done in over a year. I nodded, told her to take her time. The second the door closed, I grabbed my keys, waited 2 minutes, and followed. She didn't go to yoga. She drove to a pharmacy, picked up a few things, and then turned toward a park on the west side of town. Parked. Waited in her car. Then, a blue sedan pulled up beside her. A man got out, tall, gray hoodie, baseball cap pulled low. She got out too. They didn't kiss, didn't touch. But the way she smiled, that full-faced, nervous, giddy kind of smile she used to reserve for me when we were younger, that's what tore me open. They walked toward a bench near the pond and sat close. Leaned in. She laughed. He touched her wrist once. And just like that, 1,000 pictures I didn't want in my head started arranging themselves. I didn't confront them. I didn't storm over like some jealous fool. I drove away. Quietly. Back home. I sat in the driveway for 15 minutes trying to feel angry or betrayed or something, but all I felt was this strange hollowness. Like I had already grieved the loss of her long before that moment. Like this wasn't new, just confirmed. That evening, she came home, kissed my cheek like nothing happened, and went straight to the bathroom. I heard her humming again. That same tune she used to hum before brushing her teeth. It was almost cruel. I walked upstairs and into the bathroom doorway. She jumped. "Oh," she said, surprised. "Didn't hear you. Who's the guy at the park?" Her smile twitched. "What?" I leaned against the doorframe. "I followed you. You didn't go to yoga." She blinked. Swallowed. Her eyes searched mine for an escape route, a loophole, anything. "It's just a friend," she whispered, voice smaller now. I didn't think it mattered. "You didn't think I'd find out?" I corrected. There was a long pause. And then, like a dam finally cracking, she sat down on the edge of the tub and covered her face. "I didn't sleep with him," she said into her hands. "Not yet. But I thought about it. I think I still am." I didn't flinch. I didn't shout. I just stood there, watching a woman I used to believe was the safest place I knew turn into a stranger mid-sentence. "I needed something that felt alive," she added, like it justified anything. "You had it," I said quietly. "You had me. You just stopped showing up." She looked up, mascara streaked, lips trembling. "Why didn't you fight for me?" And that's when I finally broke. Not with tears, not with anger, but with truth. "I did," I said. "For years. You just didn't notice. By the time you needed a fight, I didn't have anything left to fight for." She tried to speak, but no words came. I left her there, sitting on porcelain, surrounded by echoes of who we were. That night, I didn't sleep in the guest room. I slept in the car, windows down, phone off, and for the first time in months, I slept without dreaming of her at all. I woke up with my cheek pressed against the car window and the outline of the seatbelt dug into my neck. It was still dark. Maybe 5, maybe 6 in the morning, hard to tell. Everything felt foggy, like I was trapped between yesterday's punchline and today's silence. I sat there for a while, trying to remember if I had dreamed anything. I hadn't. Just blank space, like a tape someone forgot to hit record on. When I finally got out of the car and walked inside, the house was still. Too still. No humming. No footsteps. No smell of coffee. For a second, I thought she had left, packed a bag and vanished in the night. But then I heard the unmistakable sound of the dishwasher humming. She always ran it at night, even when it wasn't full. Said she liked the white noise while she slept. The irony didn't escape me. Now I was the one sneaking in. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't want to see her, not like that. Not curled under our blanket, dreaming of someone else. I went into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and noticed her phone charging on the counter. It was lit up. No password. It was wide open on her Messages app, something she must have forgotten in the rush of sleep or guilt or whatever cocktail of avoidance she was swimming in. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But curiosity wasn't what made me do it. It was survival. You can't heal from something you refuse to name. And there it was. Last night was beautiful. I didn't want it to end. Emerson. I stared at the message, letting each word slice through my chest like a dull blade. Last night. Beautiful. Didn't want it to end. They weren't just meeting at the park anymore. That much was clear. I kept scrolling. There weren't many messages. She had deleted most of them, probably to cover her tracks. But there was enough. Enough to fill the blanks I had tried so hard not to imagine. Mentions of hotels. Missing your laugh. Let's disappear for a weekend. One photo of her, not explicit, but still intimate. She was wearing my hoodie in it. My hoodie. The one she used to steal after every fight because it smelled like us. I didn't take screenshots. I didn't email them to myself. I didn't even forward the messages. I just closed the app, put the phone back where I found it, and left the glass of water untouched on the counter. I drove straight to work. Didn't shower. Didn't eat. I sat at my desk for 2 hours pretending to type, but all I did was stare at the blinking cursor in an empty email draft. My boss walked by twice and gave me a look. I nodded like I was deep in something important, when in reality, I was barely breathing. Around noon, I left the office and drove to the storage unit I'd rented 2 weeks earlier, before the park, before the dinner, before the confession. Something in me must have known. I had already started packing boxes. My guitar. Some books. The ceramic lamp from my late mother that she never liked. I opened the unit, stared at the organized mess, and thought to myself, this is what the end of a marriage looks like, not fire, not screaming. Just quiet cardboard and unpaid hope. Back home that evening, she was sitting on the couch in sweatpants, watching some crime show with a blanket over her legs. Like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't both silently detonated everything and walked away from the smoke. Hey, she said casually, glancing at me. You didn't come back last night. I know, I said. You okay? Not really. She paused the show. Do you want to talk? Do you? She hesitated. That was all the answer I needed. I walked past her and sat down at the dining table. Took out a manila folder and slid it across the table. What's this? She asked. Bank transfer records. I moved my half. Don't worry, I left the mortgage fund untouched. The utilities are on autopay for the next 2 months. Her face turned pale. Wait, what? What is this, Lowell? I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel like begging. I didn't feel like yelling. I felt done. You said you needed space, I said. Turns out, I did too. And I found it. You're overreacting, she whispered. Am I? I stood. I hope Emerson's free for brunch. I've canceled my reservation. She didn't follow me. She didn't scream or cry or fall to her knees like I imagined in my worst fantasies. She just sat there, stunned, as I walked out the door with a bag already packed in my trunk. Because she had started seeing a second version of herself, one who smiled differently, laughed on cue, loved in secret. Now she was meeting the second version of me, the one who walks away. The motel I checked into that night was nothing special: faded carpets, a humming ice machine, and a bed that dipped in the middle like it had been holding secrets for years. But I slept better than I had in months. No half-awake dread. No ghost of her curling into my side in the dark only to vanish when morning came. Just stillness. And that strange, unfamiliar thing I hadn't felt in so long, relief. I stayed gone for 4 days. Not because I had a plan, but because I didn't. There was no grand speech, no legal threats, no big dramatic confrontation. I simply vanished from her life, the way she had slowly vanished from mine. I ignored her texts, short, nervous things like, "Can we talk?" And, "I just need to explain." She called once, maybe twice a day. I let them all go to voicemail. She never left one. And that told me everything I needed to know. On the 5th day, I returned, not to talk, but to collect the last of my things. She wasn't home. I didn't tell her I was coming. I unlocked the door, walked into her house, and stood there for a moment in the entryway, trying to remember how it used to feel like home. It didn't. The place had changed. Or maybe I had. The hallway smelled like her new candles, that synthetic vanilla scent she picked up last fall when she decided the house needed a new mood. There was a sweater draped over the couch I didn't recognize, and a pair of boots by the door that definitely weren't mine. I went upstairs and packed with methodical silence. I didn't rush. I wasn't angry. I just folded shirts, unplugged my old laptop, slipped books into a box, and wrapped up the photo of my dad she used to keep turned toward the wall. It took maybe an hour. When I came back downstairs, I passed by her desk. Something made me stop. Not guilt. Not revenge. Just instinct. There was a drawer, the bottom one. Locked. She'd been oddly protective of it the past few months. I used to think it was where she kept old journals or bills she didn't want to talk about. But something tugged at me, a feeling I couldn't shake. I opened her top drawer, found a spare key taped under the lid. When I unlocked it and pulled it open, I didn't know what I expected to find. I really didn't. But definitely not this. Inside were printed photographs, some of us from years ago, but others, new. One was from the park. She was smiling. And behind her, barely in frame, was me. I had followed her that day, sure, but I'd kept my distance. I had no idea she had seen me, that she'd taken a picture. There were others. A crumpled airline boarding pass to San Diego from 2 months ago. She told me she'd gone to a women's retreat that weekend. I guess retreat meant something different when it involved hotel receipts signed in pairs. And then there was the letter. Folded 3 times, no envelope. It was addressed to Emerson, written in her looping script. It wasn't romantic. It was worse. It was goodbye. She wrote about how she couldn't go through with it. How she felt like she was trapped between 2 lives, one familiar and numb, the other thrilling and unreal. How she wasn't sure she even liked him anymore, that he represented something, not someone. She said she missed the way I used to say her name when I was tired. Missed the way we used to drive at night with no music, just the wind in our silence. She wrote, "He's not perfect, but he's mine, and I think I still love him." She never sent it. She had written it and buried it. I stood there, holding a truth she hadn't been brave enough to say aloud. And I didn't feel vindicated. I felt worse. Because the story was messier than I thought. Not good or bad. Not betrayal and loyalty. Just confusion. Weakness. A slow unraveling of something once held together by little rituals and half-promises. I locked the drawer again. Left everything inside. When she came home 2 hours later, she saw my packed car and froze in the doorway. "You came," she said. I didn't answer. "You found it, didn't you?" Still, I said nothing. She stepped closer. "I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. I didn't know what I wanted." "I'm sorry." I nodded. "I believe you." "You do?" "Yeah. I believe you didn't know. I believe you were lost. I believe you didn't mean to hurt me. But that doesn't fix what happened." "I want to try again," she whispered. "Please." I shook my head. "The person I became when I loved you. I don't think I can be him again. And I don't think you want him back, not really." Tears welled in her eyes. She reached for me. I stepped back. "I'm not punishing you," I said gently. "But I'm not saving you either." She cried then. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet, exhausted kind of sobbing, the kind that comes when there's nothing left to bargain with. I drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally did. The new place was small, uneven, and smelled faintly like sawdust and forgotten ambition. It wasn't much, but it was mine. A studio above a bookstore on Holloway Street, with a leaky faucet and creaky floorboards that sang when I paced at night. It had no history. No wedding photo on the wall. No echo of laughter that used to belong to someone else. And for once, I wasn't dragging anyone's shadow in with me. I bought a cheap mattress, 2 mugs, and a folding table I convinced myself I'd replace soon. I didn't. Every day I came back from work, sat down in a different corner, and stared at the blank walls like they might whisper something back. Something about who I was now that I wasn't anyone's husband. Just a man with too much time and not enough sound. The calls from Tessa stopped after the second week. She left one voicemail, soft, unsure, almost childlike. She said, "I'm giving you space now. I get it. I hope one day you'll let me talk to you again." I never responded. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because the version of me who would have picked up that call had stopped existing the moment she smiled at someone else and pretended it was harmless. But just when I thought the story was over, life threw in one final twist. It started with a knock. 3 sharp taps on a rainy Friday night. I assumed it was Mr. Henley, the bookstore owner downstairs who always forgot his keys. But when I opened the door, it wasn't him. It was Emerson. No guessing, no awkward uncertainty. I knew immediately. He was exactly the type, confident posture, slick hair, the kind of face that had seen too many mirrors. But his expression wasn't smug. It was nervous, maybe even embarrassed. He introduced himself quietly, said he'd gotten my address from a mutual friend, likely one of Tessa's coworkers who still hadn't realized which side of this mess they were supposed to be on. "I just need 5 minutes," he said. I leaned against the doorframe. "You've had months. What's left to say?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "She didn't tell me she was married. Not at first. That caught me off guard. She said she was separated. Said it was complicated. that you were living like roommates and it was already over. I believed her. I'm not saying that to defend myself. Just, I thought you should know. I stared at him. So why are you here now? He looked down. Because she tried to come back to me after you left. I told her no. That pulled something cold through my spine. She's not in love with either of us, he said. She's in love with the idea of being chased, of being needed. She's not malicious, but she's never alone. Not really. I didn't speak. Not right away. I just let the rain tap against the awning as he stood there shifting from foot to foot like a child rehearsing a confession. I thought you deserved to hear it from me, he added. You weren't crazy. You weren't blind. You were just someone who loved the wrong person at the right time. Then he left. No threats. No excuses. No closure. Just one man who helped shatter my life walking back into the rain, looking like he'd lost something too. That night, I sat in the middle of my room and pulled out an old notebook I hadn't touched since college. I started writing. Not to her. Not to him. Just to myself. Page after page of every time I gave in when I should have spoken up. Every time I held back to keep the peace. Every joke I swallowed. Every dinner I cooked while she smiled at her phone instead of me. It came out of me like poison draining from a wound. And for the first time, I didn't care if anyone ever read it. It was for me. A story only I needed to understand. I wrote until my hand cramped. Until the rain stopped. Until the sound of my breathing felt like enough. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight cutting through the dusty blinds. And I realized something had shifted. The ache wasn't gone, but it wasn't running the show anymore. I was. Spring came quietly, like it had been waiting for me to be ready. I hadn't noticed the seasons change in years. Not really. But one morning, I looked out the studio window and saw a line of trees just starting to bud, green fingers stretching from cold bark like they'd survived something too. There was a warmth in the air that hadn't been there before, like the world was whispering, "You made it." I didn't go back to her. I didn't answer the occasional message she sent through mutual friends or the one email that said she hoped I'd remember the good parts. I did remember them, but I also remembered how easily she abandoned them. That was the difference now. I wasn't pretending the pain hadn't happened. I just wasn't letting it own me anymore. Somewhere around June, I started going to a small writer's circle that met behind the bookstore on Wednesday nights. At first, I just listened. A group of strangers reading poems and stories, laughing too loudly, crying without apology. I felt like an outsider with a ghost on his back. But week by week, I shared a little more. Pages from that old notebook. Fragments of something I hadn't realized was still alive in me, my voice. That's where I met Mara. She wasn't flashy. No dramatic entrances or too sweet compliments. She just noticed things, the way people smiled, the tension in someone's jaw, the metaphors no one else caught. She once told me, "You write like a man who's walked through fire but didn't burn for anyone but himself." I didn't know how to respond to that. So I just said thank you, and we went for coffee. Not a date. Just coffee. But it became a habit. We'd walk after meetings, sometimes in silence, sometimes talking about nothing, childhood pets, weird dreams, bad movies. It felt safe. Not in a dull way. In a healing way. Like she didn't need me to prove anything. Like she wasn't waiting for a version of me I couldn't maintain. I told her everything eventually. The marriage. The affair. The slow-motion ending. She didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, "Sounds like you survived something that wanted to keep you small." One afternoon in late July, we sat on a bench outside the bookstore. It was hot. She was eating a melting popsicle and laughing about something one of the poets had said. I don't even remember what, but I remember the exact moment it hit me. I wasn't broken anymore. Not patched up. Not taped together. Just whole. Quietly. Unexpectedly. I still lived in that studio. Still walked the same creaky floors, made the same burnt toast in the same crooked toaster. But everything felt different now. Not because life had changed around me, but because I had. Tessa became a memory, not a wound. Emerson faded into irrelevance. The story I thought had ruined me had simply redirected me. To myself. To peace. To a woman who didn't try to complete me, but sat beside me while I rebuilt. So here I am now, writing this with the window open, the bookstore humming downstairs, and the sound of someone kind, laughing softly in the kitchen. She asked for space. And I gave it. But I found something better in the distance. I found me.